Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3740 BN. Today's date is September 28th, 2025, and the title of the episode is As the Deep State is Indicted, Deep State Unleashes Antifa, Trump Counters with the Military. Buckle up. Talk about our health. We've partnered with Gundry MD to share this information with you. Would you believe me if I told you inside your pantry right now is one of the healthiest foods on the planet? Yep, it's true. And it's not some weird trendy superfood. Spoiler alert, it's olive oil. You're probably used to cooking with it, but there are countless ways to use olive oil to help yourself look and feel younger. For example, olive oil is a natural way to help you achieve a more youthful appearance. Besides helping you look younger on the outside, it's a fantastic tool for your insides as well. According to Dr. Stephen Gundry, a famous cardiothoracic surgeon, nutrition expert, and health advocate, you should get as much high-quality olive oil into your daily routine as possible, whether it's taking a shot of it daily or keeping a bottle of it in your bathroom medicine cabinet. But what kind of olive oil is best for your health? Well, any olive oil can give you some benefits, but if you're looking to get the best results, it matters a lot which one you pick. The olive oil industry is huge. You can tell by the number of olive oil brands you see at the grocery store, and you can bet they're not all made with the consumer in mind, and many brands may even cut corners one way or another to increase profits. When Dr. Gundry came to this realization, he was appalled, but some olive oils are so powerful, it may only take a few tablespoons a week to see these incredible health benefits. So how can you tell between an olive oil that can be a health booster and which one isn't up to par? In an effort to answer that question, Dr. Gundry decided to take a stand and release his personal research and findings. This video has gone viral since its release, and it's important you see it so you can start benefiting immediately. You can watch the video right now by going to getolive1.com/x22 or by clicking the link in the description box below. That's getolive1.com/x22 or just click the link in the description box below. People who have taken his advice have shared their results with him, saying the olive oil they bought after learning his simple rules has helped change their lives. Make sure you go to getolive1.com/x22 or click the link in the description box below this video. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they are now in a deep panic. They see the direction that Trump is headed in. He sees that the people that he put into the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, DHS, ODNI, they're all moving in the same direction. And you could see that a lot of these individuals that are heading up these agencies, they are now looking at the people in their agencies and they are now removing certain individuals. And I do believe they are cleaning out their agencies. And the reason why the deep state players are so panicked is because they've lost complete and utter control over their criminal syndicate. And as Trump stripped away their security clearances, they are now blind. Think about what he's done. He has now removed, like we just said, their security clearance. They're blind. They have no idea what's happening. The intelligence agencies no longer are filtering them the information that they need. You see, if you go back to Trump's first term, they still had the intelligence agencies. They knew everything that Trump was doing. They knew every step except for the military. That is the only organization that they had no information of what was really going on. Everything else, the intelligence agencies, they were monitoring everything. They knew pretty much what he was doing. And this is why they were able to feed this into their propaganda outlets, which is the fake news. Now, since Trump stripped away their security clearances, they're running blind. Since he put people in place in the intelligence agencies, and they've been cleaning the intelligence agencies up, the information is not being filtered to the fake news. This is why they're just coming up with fake stories, because they don't actually have the information. They don't know exactly what Trump and the Patriots are doing right now. And if you take this a step further, what else has Trump done? He has removed the flow of money. He has removed the ability for them to fund their operations, not just in this country, but around the world. And this is going to make it very, very difficult, because if you look back in time, you could see all the organizations, the NGOs, USAID, and everything else. They used all of this to fund their operations. And as this money is drying up, we know from Bill Clinton and from others, they're saying, hey, all you very wealthy Democrats and all the money that has been laundered to you in the past, you're going to have to now use your funds to stop what is going on, and you're going to have to fund our operations. This is how desperate they are getting right now. And as their people are being indicted, and we see James Comey, he is the first individual. And remember, the charge is lying to Congress and obstruction. And this is just the beginning. This is just the start to get the narrative going. Because you have to remember, those people around the country, they heard Russian collusion, they heard it was a hoax, but they don't know the inner workings of what was really going on and how this all came about. And again, do they know some of the players? Yes, they do. Do they know every single player? No, they don't. So I do believe what Trump wants to do, he wants to build the narrative. Because again, if these people lied to Congress, if they covered up certain small little crimes, this feeds into the bigger crimes. And as the deep state players are being indicted, you could see the deep state players are doing what? They're unleashing their foot soldiers, which is Antifa. And they're also going to unleash their criminals that they've been releasing in this country. Because again, for them to do what they're going to do, which is an insurrection, they need people that have no morals. And you're not going to get family members. You're going to get the people that are criminals. Those are the people that are going to carry out what you want them to carry out. And this is why Trump has been countering everything that they're about to do. This is why he put together all the executive orders. If you attack an ICE agent, you go to prison. If you're a terrorist organization, if you're funding Antifa, you're designated as a terrorist. This is why he's pre-positioning the National Guard in all these different cities. Because again, the National Guard can work with who? The military. And this is all being done because Trump is countering the deep state players, because as they get indicted, they're going to release their foot soldiers to create chaos. And Trump, he's going to be using the National Guard and the military to counter everything that they're doing. And actually, this is going to make it a lot easier for Trump to basically clean up everything. You have to remember, the only reason Trump at this point in time can do all of this is because he got the people. Without the people, without showing them the truth, without waking the people up, without the people thinking logically, none of this could happen. And yes, slowly but surely, you're going to see a lot of the moderate Ds, they are now shifting over to, I'm not saying full Republican, but they're shifting to the area where they're saying, you know something, I don't like that my town's being burnt down. I don't like that there's criminals roaming the streets. I don't like that there's looting of stores. Everyday hardworking people, no matter if you're Republican or Democrat, they don't like this. I'm not talking about the far left. I'm not talking about the installed politicians, because they have an agenda. But as we go through all of this, this is going to build and build and build. And yes, it's going to get very, very bumpy. At the same time, what else is the deep state doing? They're now building the narrative for war out in Ukraine, Russia. And they're also going to try to do this with Iran and the Middle East. This is what they're going to try to do. Trump, every step of the way, he is countering all this. But I think what he's doing with Russia and Ukraine, he knows the EU, the deep state players, they're not just going to say, hey, let's have peace. Because again, it's game over if they do that out in Ukraine. Because this is where they have their money laundering. This is where they have their biolabs. This is where they're pretty much their base of operations actually is. So you know from the 16-year plan, they wanted war from the very, very beginning. So I do believe most likely they will try to push war. I mean, the European Union, they're already letting us know that we're in a hybrid war, drone cyber war. This is what they're putting out there, that they're in a hybrid war with Russia. So they are definitely building the entire narrative. And I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're leading them down this path because Trump is going to use this against them. Because since he has the people, and the people around the world are awake, they just have a very difficult time getting rid of their installed leaders. I mean, look at Macron. His approval rating is down in the dirt. Look at Starmer. His approval rating is down in the dirt. Look at Merz. The AFD party is building and building, even as they assassinate them. The AFD party is still building, and Mer's approval rating is down in there, and many other countries too. You could see the people are not on their side. Trump knows that he has the people now, and he knows that if he brings them down this path and they keep pushing war, and they actually bring us into a scenario where it might look like a Cuban Missile Crisis, where we're on the edge of war, we're on the edge of nuclear war. He knows the people will be behind him when he says, no, what are we doing here? Let's go to peace. We should have peace. I can negotiate peace. Now, of course, the deep state players are going to fight back, but the people are going to be on Trump's side because in reality, nobody wants nuclear war except for the deep state players. This has been their plan from the very, very beginning. So I do believe Trump, he's doing this on purpose and leading the deep state players down this path, because how do you usher in peace when you have a body that it's installed that doesn't want peace? You need the people to force it. And this is what Trump is about to do. And yes, it's going to be a scare event where he's going to be pushing this. Are we going to war? Absolutely not. Will it look like we are? I do believe so. And we're going to see that here in this country. Is it going to look like that the deep state players are rioting all over the country? It might look like that as they unleash their foot soldiers across the country. But you have to remember, Trump is pre-positioning everything. So when they do this, all he has to do is say, insurrection. You have the National Guard, you have the military. It's very, very easy to shut it all down at a moment's notice. And there's nothing, Antifa, there's nothing, the illegals, there's nothing that the criminals can do. Because once again, who has all the leverage? The Patriots do. But again, it's going to look scary, and we're definitely going down this path. And you could see step by step as Trump and his team continually indicts more and more people, the deep state players, they're going to panic, and you're going to see that they're going to lash out, where they're going to do probably these two things that I just mentioned, riots and war. But don't worry, the countermeasures, they're all in place. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's start off with Jimmy Kimmel, because again, as we know, ABC, they folded. And it looks like Sinclair Broadcasting Group, they caved and said it's bringing back Jimmy Kimmel Live. And we'll have to see how this plays out, because you have to remember, they're losing money with Jimmy Kimmel every step of the way. And it might look great in the very beginning, but I think what's going to happen over time is that the losses are going to become so great. Remember, they're not getting the USAID money. They're not getting money filtered into the network anymore. So I do believe as they continually lose money, the sponsors and everyone else, as once again, as Trump and team put into place everything that has to do with the pharmaceutical companies, where they have to show all the side effects, the ingredients and all that, that is going to make it very difficult for the networks. And that's where a lot of their funding is coming from. So this is going to be very, very interesting moving forward. I don't think that Kimmel and many other shows are going to be on the air anymore, because they're going to have to start to restructure everything because they're continually losing money. It makes no sense whatsoever. But the other thing that's very interesting is that you could see that Trump now and his team, they're going after all the different blue states that are allowing the illegals to get jobs, the illegals to drive trucks, because we saw what happened with an illegal driving a truck where they pretty much murdered someone. So we had Sean Duffy looking into the CDLS driver's license, the commercial driver's license, and he realized there is nationwide abuse in issuing commercial driver's licenses to illegals. So Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is taking major action after revealing an abuse of commercial driver's licenses. Duffy announced that after a nationwide audit, the DOT has uncovered a shocking nationwide abuse of states giving commercial driver's licenses to illegals. He revealed that states are failing to follow even the most basic procedures to issue licenses properly, thanks to procedural errors, computer flaws, and lack of oversight. This means states are issuing licenses that extend months and even years beyond a driver's lawful presence in America. A major incentive to overstay work permits. Even worse, current federal regulations are allowing such dangerous illegal alien drivers on our roadways. This means crashes involving these drivers are happening even with rules being followed. Duffy says we have launched a nationwide audit of non-domiciled CDLS to get to the bottom of what we think is causing the crisis. So this is very, very interesting. And I do believe he's going to shut all this down. And of course, it allowed the illegals to stay in this country. It allowed the illegals to get work permits. And once again, all of this is going to be shut down. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, ICE, yes, they're making arrests. They are going after the illegals. But ICE has arrested a superintendent of a Des Moines, Iowa public school. And the illegal alien is a fugitive from Guyana. And he had a prior weapons arrest. So this individual, Dr. Ian Andre Roberts, was an active ICE fugitive with a deportation order since May 2024. Now, he came in with a green card. He overstayed his visa, never renewed it, and now basically he's here illegally, which is very, very interesting. And he became a superintendent of the schools. Amuse put this out and said, well, the Des Moines all Democrat, all female school board hired a new superintendent based purely on his skin color. Now, when you look at the school board, majority of the women are white. There is one black woman. Not only was he an illegal alien and a fugitive from justice, he lacked the basic education and experience to lead the state's largest school district. Armed with an illegal firearm, Ian Andre Roberts charmed the pants off of every member of the female board. The only box he couldn't have possibly checked for the board and the district was the color of his skin. Did the board know he was an illegal immigrant and a fugitive from justice? I think they might have known. Why do I say that? Because Michelle Obama's ex-chief of staff hired the illegal criminal to run a school district. So at the center of this scandal is Jackie Norris, the board chair who oversaw Roberts' appointment. Norris is no ordinary school official. She's a longtime Democrat who previously served as chief of staff to the First Lady, which was Michelle Obama. So do I believe that they knew or somebody knew? Absolutely. And now it is unraveling all around the deep state players. And people are seeing this. Now, of course, the fake news, they'll try to spin everything. They'll try to convince people. But again, every time they do this, they just make it worse for themselves. Because again, as the truth comes out, it shows that the fake news, the D's, they're covering for these people, which means they've known that they're illegal. They've known they committed crimes, and they're trying to cover up of what's really happening here. And as more and more people see this, they're starting to realize this. Just like they're starting to realize that within this country, there's been a gigantic sex trafficking ring, a pedophilia ring, and yes, eventually it will lead to Epstein. And I do believe as Trump and the Patriots, as they indict all these people, it's going to show that they are now linked to everything Epstein. And it's all one and the same. And what's very interesting about this, and of course this also leads back to Soros and many others, is that a retired Wall Street millionaire trader, Howard Rubin, he's been charged with sex trafficking. So that's very interesting. So he was charged with sex trafficking. So this retired Wall Street millionaire, he has past ties to George Soros. He's behind bars, accused of torturing Playboy models and other women in Midtown penthouse that he turned into a soundproof sex dungeon for years. So Howard Rubin is 70 years old, and basically he had this room that was painted red, soundproofed, with a device to shock or electrocute the women, as well as a cross with a bed with restraints where the alleged victims would be bound and gagged. Do you think this is the only individual? Do you think there's a lot more people that we're going to find out that were involved in this type of scenario? Do you think this person might have taken a trip to maybe Epstein Island? I do believe we're going to find out eventually that there's going to be a lot of politicians, a lot of dignitaries, a lot of wealthy individuals that were all involved in this. But again, timing is everything. And I do believe when the time is right, and these people now are all indicted, a lot of these people are put in a prison, and you're starting to see their treasonous crimes. Yes, the fake news, they'll try to spin this just like they're doing it right now with Comey. But eventually, as the evidence comes out and the documented proof comes out, that they were also involved in torturing women, torturing children for their perverted sex fantasies or whatever they have, I think this is going to be the topper on the cake. And this is why I do believe that the information didn't come out right away, because, again, you don't have that buildup of the treasonous crimes that they have committed. So if they committed these treasonous crimes, is it that far-fetched to believe that they have also done these type of crimes? No, I don't believe so. And actually, when you start to hear this, those moderate Ds, they're going to go, holy crap, what is going on here? And they're going to turn on the deep state players and the D party. That is what's going to happen on the end. Because remember, these people, they have families. Yes, they might be part of the D party right now, but they're on the fence. And I'm not talking about the far left people, the crazy nuts. I'm talking about the everyday people. You might even know friends, family members. You might even know some of these people. You might even are able to talk to some of them right now, but maybe others you can't. But I do believe in the end, when you start to bring this stuff in, this is what changes everything. And the timing, I do believe, is going to be absolutely perfect. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Doge right now, they are uncovering quite a bit. And yes, they've been tracking down how all this money is funneled into the NGOs, the shell companies, back into Soros, back into the organizations that are creating and helping and assisting Antifa, the illegals, the criminals, and whatnot. And what's very interesting, and Owen Gregorian put this out, and he says that Elon Musk's Doge uncovered the biggest healthcare heist in American history. And this is coming from PJ Media. And this is what he says. What if I told you that cartels and other bad actors from around the world conspired to undermine the integrity of the healthcare system in the U.S. and came way too close to succeeding? If you didn't hear about the bust of 324 people, the U.S.-based cartel Shell Medical Supply Company, the pill mills pushing opioids, the doctors on the take, or how law enforcement captured many of the bad guys at the U.S. border and airports as they rushed to escape, that's understandable. The feds revealed this potential $14.6 billion depth charge planted inside the Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance programs in June while most people were away on summer vacation. Why did transnational organizations go after these particular programs? Well, as we know, criminals go where the money is. Absolutely. There's more than $1.4 trillion spent by these government programs per year. And the bad guys have tried, by hook or by crook, and even with aid of AI, to set into motion plans to steal nearly $15 billion. They got away with just shy of $3 billion before they were caught, and their other frauds were frozen in their tracks. If this bust looks to you like it had Elon Musk's old Department of Government efficiency fingerprints on it, you'd be right. Using AI and law enforcement tactics, Doge team worked with HHS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, an all-hands-on-deck array of federal agents from DEA, FBI, and healthcare agencies to track down all fraud leads. And as a result, the feds are setting up a healthcare data fusion center to detect where fraud spikes are occurring in near real time. Dr. Oz says Doge is involved. The president has been very clear that he wants this fraud, waste, and abuse crushed. That's the words that he used. Doge is not just about cutting waste and fraud within government. It has been actively involved at CMS in helping address places where fraud is existing that we never thought to look. Oz said these guys were sophisticated and used state-of-the-art methods to rip the government programs blind. That's how we're being attacked now. And it's not done by a small-time operator, as you're hearing about and you'll read about. These are organized syndicates who are designed to hurt America. And why do they hurt our healthcare system? Well, CMS is probably the largest target of all, responsible for about $1.7 trillion of disbursement. So it's a big target on our side, and they can pierce the veil of protection by just getting identifier numbers from our senior or Medicaid recipients or others. According to the DOJ, overseas cartel thieves set up a sophisticated network of medical supply companies that submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare. So basically, these individuals from all different countries, all different places like Estonia, Pakistan, you name it, they've been taking this money. I wonder if a lot of this money was being laundered back into the criminal syndicate system. This is one way they could do it. Of course, they're going to take a piece of the action. But again, you could see that it's not just fraud. This is basically money laundering 101. And you could see the FBI, anyone, all these agencies under past presidents, how come they didn't do anything about this? Because again, it was all part of the criminal syndicate. That's why. And you can see that now it's all being shut down. And this is why the deep state players are panicking the way they're panicking. Because again, when you shut down the flow of money, not just from USAID, but from all these different programs that they had running, how do you fund your operation? How do you fund all the different organizations? How do you pay Antifa, the criminals, the illegals that are pushing their agendas? How do you fund the World Economic Forum? How do you fund the UN? How do you fund the World Health Organization? How do you fund all of this? Remember, this is all these different organizations, anything that has world in it, that's part of their new world order. And if they're not getting the funding, how do they operate? They can't. Remember, they were able to build this from we the people. They used our money to try to destroy us. And now Trump is shutting it all off. The spigots have been turned off. But you can see out in Europe, they're moving forward with their agenda to have the new world order. And this is why the UK introduced the digital ID cards. Because again, they used the narrative that, hey, listen, we know we have a lot of illegals in here. I don't know how they got here. Just one day they just appeared. Now we have all these Muslims, all these people from other countries, and people are pissed off. They're angry. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce this new digital ID. We just thought of it. Just came out of nowhere. Just because the fact that we have all these illegals in here. So this way you can make sure that you get the job. You can make sure that you are permitted to do certain things in this country. And those people that are here illegally, they can't do any of this. So basically what they did was they created a problem and they made people accept this type of solution. Just like they created the fake pandemic and they made the people accept the bioweapon. They made the people accept the vaccine passport. It's the same thing. The digital ID leads into what? Their Great Reset plan. Their central bank digital currency, because once you're hooked into all of this, they have complete and utter control over you. Your political beliefs are the opposite of what we're telling you, and you're speaking out, click, everything's shut down. This is what they're doing out in Europe. They're moving forward with this. Here in this country, the opposite is happening. And you can see that Trump right now, he is now bringing down the criminal syndicate. There's going to be no great reset in this country. Trump now is shifting us into his parallel economic system, away from the central bank system. That's what the tariffs are for. That's what the gold card's for. That's what the energy sales are for. That's what the cheaper energy is, because we're going to be bringing in all the currency externally. We'll be moving away from the creation of currency from a centralized location. And we're going to wean ourselves off of the Federal Reserve. That is the root of all evil right there. And as he does this, the deep state players are going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. And the only thing that they have left right now, and we can see it's already evolving, is Antifa building their attacks on ICE. And again, that is going to move from ICE to others. And you can see that they're already preparing. They already have their foot soldiers in place. Of course, Trump has the countermeasures in place. He's pre-positioning the military, the National Guard. He's making sure he's prepared and ready for what they have coming. You can see the deep state players. They're also preparing to have most likely some type of false flag in the future, because again, the EU, they're already saying that we're in a hybrid war with Russia, which is a drone cyber war. They're already bringing in the cyber part of it, which I do believe is going to play a very, very big part. And also this also leads into the Great Reset. So I do believe this is where they're trying to push us. Now, like we said in the very, very beginning, I do believe Trump is actually allowing them to go down this path for a specific reason. Because again, if the EU, the deep state players, Zelensky, if they really truly wanted peace, they would sit down at the negotiation table. They would have peace. And Trump, he tried this over and over and over. And I think he knew from the very, very beginning that they were never going to have a peace negotiation. But again, he likes to give them the benefit of the doubt. He wants them to do the right thing. And when they don't do the right thing, Then he moves into the other plan. Okay, now we're going to have to do it the other way. Because again, you didn't want to do it the easy way, so we're going to have to do it this way and expose everything that you're trying to do. This is what he does with the deep state time and time again. So when you think that nothing's happening, a lot of things are happening. And what's very interesting, it's amazing how many people all of a sudden turn like on Cash because it's not going the right way, or Pam Bondi, it's not going the right way. It reminds me so much of like when Moses went up the mountain. And all the people believed in him. And they were like, yes, Moses, yes, he speaks to God. Yes, oh my God, this is great. They had faith in him. But when he was gone for a little while and he didn't come down the mountain, all of a sudden, those people in the crowd, they started to say, oh, look, you see, he's full of crap. He's not coming down the mountain. Your faith in him, you shouldn't have faith in him. Actually, you know what you should do? Let's build the idols. Let's build the gold idols. Let's do something different because again, he's not doing anything. He's not. He said he was going to come back with the message. Nothing's happening. You see? So we must look over here, and that's what people are doing today. If you really think about it, and what's very interesting is that as people were building the golden idols and doing all these things, Moses came down from the mountain. And he saw what was going on. People looked at him, holy crap, he's got 2 tablets in his hand. And people were like shocked, like, holy crap, he did do something. It just took a little while. It didn't, we thought he'd go up, come down, and that would be it. It's the same thing with Trump and his team. Sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes the deep state is so dug in that you have to do certain things and go around it, or make sure that you have certain things in a place so nobody gets harmed. And as soon as things aren't going the way everyone thinks it's going, like, oh, look, there's no arrest. Oh, see, they're doing that. You have to remember, certain things have to be in place. Did you know a growing body of research shows that when you diet, your body fights back? Levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, shoots up, while leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, drops. That's why most diets feel like an endless battle. The more weight you try to lose, the hungrier you get. It's not a willpower issue. It's literally your biology. This is why I use my secret weight loss weapon, and I'm obsessed with the results. BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate is designed to naturally trigger my own body's weight loss signals without drugs, prescriptions, or needles. It promotes a feeling of fullness, reduce cravings, reduce hunger hormones, help me lose fat instead of muscle, and supports healthy blood sugar levels. Be sure to grab a bottle now while it's 50% off and start experiencing real results only at trimwithx22.com. Plus, by ordering now, you'll also guarantee 2 free ebooks titled The 3-Week Diet and 53 Fat-Burning Smoothies and Milkshakes. Once again, the website is trimwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. And again, we're already starting to see the lower level type of crimes already. These Comey, I think Brennan's going to be next. It's happening. It might not be on your timetable because you don't know the inner workings. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know the pushback with the criminal syndicate. You don't know the sleepers that are in these different agencies. And this is why you have to be a little bit patient. We voted for this. You don't think Trump this time around, from learning from his first administration, who's to trust, who not to trust? Why do you think he called certain people out saying, no, we can't have this person. We must have this person. We checked into this person. This person's no good. So Pam, have this person come in. Sorry about that. We realized that this person's a sleeper. This person's not going to do anything. Sometimes, yes, it's not going to be perfect. Sometimes there are certain sleepers, certain individuals that actually bypass what Trump is trying to do. But I do believe that they have things locked down. Eventually, they're going to be found out, and they're going to be replaced, and they're going to be moved out to other locations. And all these people are panicking are absolutely ridiculous, because as soon as they panic, all of a sudden information comes out, and now there's an indictment. Now, of course, people are going to say, well, there's no other indictments. There's nobody else. That's it. Just Comey. Eventually, yes, one's going to lead to another, one's going to lead to another. But again, they're creating the narrative right now. And yes, the same thing is going to happen with the war that we're going to see out in Russia and Ukraine. But it looks like Trump, he's letting us know that there might be some type of peace negotiation out with Hamas and what's happening out in Gaza. Now, again, you have to remember this is a terrorist organization. I think Trump wants to end this peacefully, Yes, again, he's going to give them the benefit of the doubt. He's going to try to do the right thing, to have negotiations, and he's going to hope that, yes, we can just iron this out and nobody has to get hurt. If that's not the case, then he'll take it to the next level. But he did put this out on Truth. He said the following: I'm pleased to report that we're having very inspired and productive discussions with the Middle Eastern community concerning Gaza. Intense negotiations have been going on for 4 days and will continue for as long as necessary in order to get a successfully completed agreement. All of the countries within the region are involved. Hamas is very much aware of these discussions, and Israel has been informed at all levels, including Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. There is more goodwill and enthusiasm for getting a deal done. After so many decades than I have ever seen before, everyone is excited to put this period of death and darkness behind them. It is an honor to be part of this negotiation. We must get the hostages back and get a permanent and long-standing peace. So let's see how this all plays out. But again, I do believe the biggest thing is going to be Russia and Ukraine. And yes, they're going to try to, push what's happening out in Gaza. They're going to try to still push this. They're going to try to push Iran, because you can see there's snapback sanctions going against Iran right now. Iran is reacting to Germany and the other nations. And you can see they're trying to get this going. And like we said before, the EU Commissioner Dombrovskis, he pretty much said, we're in a hybrid war with Russia, combining military and cyber and informational elements. So they're already letting you know the hybrid war exists. Now, what's very interesting is that Trump, he put something out on Truth, and I think he did it on purpose because he wants to let everyone know, don't worry, we will be heading to peace. It might look like war, but we're going to be heading to peace with Russia and Ukraine. It might look scary. It might look like we're on the edge of World War III. It might look like the Cuban Missile Crisis, but I'm going to usher in peace. This is what he put out on Truth. President Trump, the president of peace. President Trump ended 7 wars in just 7 months. Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, DRC and Rwanda, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia and Azerbaijan. So he had peace with all these different countries, and he's letting you know he's the president of peace. I do believe he did this on purpose. Now, the Wall Street Journal and other publications, they're out there letting everyone know that Zelensky wants Tomahawk missiles so he can hit deep into Russia. And you can see that the fake news outlets, they're trying to build this up, saying that Trump is going to give this to Zelensky. Why would Trump give Zelensky these weapons to actually start World War III? It doesn't make any sense. And Trump pretty much says, no, we are not going to hand over Tomahawk cruise missiles that could reach Moscow. He completely denied the request. Because why would he deny it? Because he doesn't want an actual World War III. He wants to control what the deep state is doing. Yes, he knows there's going to be a false flag, but he's not going to give the deep state ammunition to do this. He wants them to go down a certain path. He wants them to push the false flag, which I do believe his military intelligence tells him that he's going to push, while at the same time he's speaking to Putin via the back channels. Sounds like a movie, I know, where you have a deep state third party trying to start World War III, probably going to try to push a false flag while speaking to the president of that country where they're trying to start World War III using back channels. Sounds very, very interesting. We'll have to see how this all plays out. Now, we know last week Trump came out and RFK Jr., they came out and they talked about Tylenol, on how that actually assists in causing autism. Now, I do believe this is all going to lead into vaccines. This is just the beginning stages. And we know that there's a lot of pregnant women that are taking Tylenol, lots of it, just to prove a point, and they're getting sick and they're going to the hospital. And they're actually just hurting themselves and hurting their babies, which makes no sense whatsoever. But Trump, he did put this out on Truth. He said the following: Pregnant women, don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary. Don't give Tylenol to your young child for virtually any reason. Break up the MMR shot into 3 totally separate shots, not mixed. Take chicken pox shot separately. Take hepatitis B shot at 12 years old or older. And importantly, take vaccine in 5 separate medical visits. Because I do believe the chemicals within all these vaccines combined at a very short period of time creates the autism. And if you basically spread this out, don't take Tylenol. This actually minimizes it because your body is able to break down the toxins. So I do believe Trump now is just letting everyone know this is the approach that you should take, because they're not up to the point telling you that the vaccines have caused it. But can we stop people from having children with autism or having them come out with illnesses by following this approach? That those people that still want to take vaccines, yes, I do believe we can minimize this quite a bit. And I do believe this is why he came out and told everyone to do this at this point in time. But I do believe that, yes, this is all going to lead to vaccines. And eventually we're going to learn by taking all these vaccines, this is what's been causing autism. But at this point in time, since we're not there yet, remember, he builds this up with the narrative, started off with Tylenol. Now he's telling people, take these safety precautions. You could still take the vaccine, so nobody can argue with him, or RFK saying, hey, they told us not to take vaccines. And you can have because you're going to have the fake news out there broadcasting this. Nope, Trump is still saying, do it, but do it in this way, because this way your child will not get autism. Very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the deep state players, they are panicking in what they are seeing now. They realize that Trump now is moving forward with indictments. They see the first one. They know others are coming. And they're now prepping and preparing for riots and war. And what's very interesting is that Barack Obama put this out and said, Republicans can't win on their policies, so they're trying to dodge accountability by rewriting the rules. These lawmakers are going out of their way to silence the will of the people and deliberately undermine our democracy. Well, you have to remember, Barack Obama is a snake oil salesman. And what he says is actually the opposite. Lisa May translates, and she says the following: Democrats can't win on their policies, so they're trying to reopen our borders to allow their voters back in, threaten to shut down the government unless they get funding for illegals, voters, repeatedly incite violence against ICE to stop deportation of their voters, etc. Think about what he just said and think about the translation. Think about what you're seeing right now. You're seeing it all. And think about Schumer and the D's that are trying to shut down the government. They're actually blackmailing the Republicans and Trump, saying we want $1 trillion or we're going to shut down the government. But again, Schumer is not going to win. No matter what he does at this point, he's screwed. We'll be talking about that a little bit later in this report. But first, let's talk about what's happening with January 6th. Because again, January 6th, we know that this was an operation. It was an operation driven by the deep state players. We know there was a lot of confidential human sources. We know that the FBI, Antifa, and many other people that were involved in all of this. And this whole thing was an operation to make it look like the Republicans, the MAGA people, they were actually pushing an insurrection because they didn't like the results of the election. Well, of course, MAGA didn't like the results of the election because the deep state players rigged the election. And they actually had an insurrection. I'm talking about the deep state. They had the insurrection against a sitting president. There was only one sitting president at the time. It was not Biden. Remember, he wasn't certified. So the sitting president was President Trump. So the deep state players had an insurrection against the sitting president. That's the only way an insurrection works. And what's very interesting, and let's go back a little bit in time. Since James Comey was indicted, remember going back to 2023 when James Comey was talking about who to prosecute for January 6th? Mays put this out and says, and this is when he was speaking to Jen Psaki, he said, get all of them. Find everybody who went into that building. Find them all. We will punish everyone who went in there. We will hunt you to the end of the earth, even for a misdemeanor, and make you pay. Because once again, they had to put away all these people. to make it look like there was true insurrection. And what do they want to do? They wanted to send a clear message to we the people. Try anything, we're coming at you. Because again, they're the ones who actually created the insurrection. Trump, he put this out on Truth and said, for those who are interested, and there aren't many of you, Christopher Wray was recommended to me by sloppy Chris Christie when Chris was in my good graces, which was a very long time ago. So you have to remember, going back in time, they tried to control Trump in the very, very beginning. In the very beginning, Trump was in the learning stages of D.C. Remember, he was never in D.C. before. And if you actually study Trump, he likes to learn. And he also likes to put things into place for the long game. So back then, the deep state players thought, listen, we're going to give him all these people. These are the people he's going to nominate. And we're going to keep tight control of everything. And I do believe this is why we were told back then that there's one organization that they didn't infiltrate, and that was the military. And this is why we were told this, and this is why Trump used the military to gain control of everything. So he was in the learning process, learning about their criminal syndicate. He allowed them to put these people into place to see how they operate. See, you don't attack your enemy until you understand your enemy. Why would you attack them if you don't know who they are, how they operate, or how they run the criminal syndicate? You wouldn't. You allow them to put all these people in place, and you have the military, one organizations that they didn't corrupt, you have that as your control piece. So during the learning stage, he allowed all of this to happen, and he allowed them to move forward with their plan, because you have to remember, Trump, he basically trapped them in everything, because now when you look back in time, you could see all the crimes that they have committed. And this is going to actually work against the deep state players. Now, what's very interesting is that the FBI, which we've come to learn, they have deployed 274 agents to the U.S. Capitol on January 6, many of whom later complained that the Bureau was driven by political bias. So the 50-page document shows the FBI sent agents to the Capitol during the riot, including inside the building, without clear instructions. So this is very, very interesting. Why would they do that? And remember, Christopher Wray, he let us know that no, there's no FBI agents. Now, I do believe there were good agents, there were bad agents, and they basically dispersed them within the building and outside the building to basically muddy the water. And this way you have bad and good. Because think about it. Remember the video of the suspected federal agent breaching the Capitol on January 6th and blaming an innocent bystander as the individual broke the window? He was dressed in black, had a walkie-talkie. Now, it could have been Antifa, or was this an FBI agent, a bad FBI agent, part of the criminal syndicate that was actually doing this? What about the pipe bomber? Do you think the pipe bomber was one of the federal agents? Hey, remember all the gallows that were built? Do you think this was federal agents that built this? Now, I do believe there were good and bad federal agents. I don't think every single one of them is bad. But what's very interesting is that the former Capitol Police Chief Stephen's son, he said that he was never told about the FBI's 274 plainclothes agents on January 6th. So he revealed in an interview with John Fawcett on The Great American Show that he was never told by the FBI that hundreds of their agents were deployed inside the January 6th crowds. How is it possible that the top cop in charge of protecting the U.S. Capitol, the man responsible for securing Congress, was left in the dark about something this massive? Because when you're having an operation, just like we saw in Pennsylvania, you don't tell certain people that are going to enforce the law. Because if you're having the bad deep state players perform an operation, you don't tell the individuals that are following the rule of law that this is happening, because it is an operation. And this is why they were never going to tell this individual. Just like when you look at Pennsylvania and you had the shooter on the roof, it was an operation. Those people that were actually going to follow the rule of law, they're actually policing, they aren't told. And you bring in DEI people so they have no idea what they're doing. The same thing with the insurrection. Actually, if you notice, it's the same exact playbook. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following. It was just revealed that the FBI had secretly placed against all rules, regulations, protocols, and standards 274 FBI agents in the crowd just prior to and during the January 6th hoax. This is different from what Director Christopher Wray stated over and over again. That's right. As it now turns out, FBI agents were at and in the January 6th protest, probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists, but certainly not as law enforcement officials. I want to know who each and every one of these so-called agents are and what they were up to on that now historic day. Many great American patriots were made to pay a very big price only for the love of their country. I owe this investigation of dirty cops and crooked politicians to them. Christopher Wray, the then director of the FBI, has some major explaining to do. That's two in a row, Comey and Wray, who got caught lying. With our great country at stake, we can never let this happen to America again. Now think about it. Wray was caught lying. So now they got Wray. That's interesting. Will Wray be the next person that they indict? Maybe, maybe not. Will it be Brennan? Maybe, maybe not. But again, you can see the direction that we're heading in right now. Start with the lesser crimes, show that they're liars, and then move from there and show the American people how treasonous these people really are. Now, remember those FBI agents that were photographed kneeling during the 2020 racial justice protests? Well, it looks like Kash Patel decided to fire all of these individuals. And once again, remember a lot of these individuals, they were relocated, and this was done as an internal review, and he reassigned these people. But eventually, as Kash and team looked into these agents, they realized that these people were part of the criminal syndicate. And then as they did their review, they were fired later on. This is how you clean house. And you can see the deep state players, they're panicking because, again, they have lost control of the intelligence. They have lost control of the agencies. The sleepers and all these individuals, the bad people within these agencies, they're being removed. The funding has been shut off. So every step of the way, they're losing their grip. And what do they have left? They have Antifa. They have riots. They have war. And if you notice, Governor Newsom is really pushing this out there. And you can see, Crockett and the rest and all the others, they're still pushing the rhetoric. But this is coming from Governor Newsom's press office. Stephen Miller is a fascist. Stephen Miller responds and says, why do you think they posted this? Because, again, they're instructing Antifa, the illegals, the criminals, who to go after. And you could see that Antifa, they're now using new tactics to actually try to stop people from posting certain videos in certain areas. Amuse put this out and said, Chicago insurgents exploit copyright rules by blasting Michael Jackson's "They Don't Really Care About Us," triggering DMCA strikes that get creators' videos removed. So if you're going to put any of these videos up, remove the sound. So this way, it's not a violation, because then you can show all these individuals. You see, they're changing tactics right now every step of the way. And you could see out in Portland, Oregon, which is their, the hub of Antifa, they're really pushing violence against the ICE facilities. And as they're doing this, you know what Trump and the Patriots are going to do. Trump doesn't need the Insurrection Act to place all the National Guard troops into these locations, because all they have to do is say, we're protecting the federal buildings. We're protecting the federal agents. So you can have them pre-positioned. They can be on standby. Just like we said many reports ago, Trump now is going to be using everything that they're seeing to pre-position National Guard. Can they work with the military later on when there is an insurrection? Absolutely. Clandestine put this out and said, the Dems mainstream media are claiming that Portland is completely peaceful and that there is no need for Trump to send troops to the ICE facility. Meanwhile, in reality, this is what the ICE facility in Portland goes through almost every night. The Dems and mainstream media are pretending these people, local, state, and federal Democrats from Oregon, are denying that these riots are happening and have allowed crime to go unchecked on their streets for years. They're refusing to enforce laws and are lying to the American people to push their political agenda, which includes allowing violent uprising on ICE facilities. This is an actual insurrection. Elected officials are not only refusing to police these criminals, they're now trying to prevent Trump from doing so. So once again, you could see that Trump and the Patriots, they're allowing this to happen. This way they can bring National Guard in to guard the federal buildings. Now, of course, Antifa, they don't want these videos out there because this actually counters their narrative. And this is why they're using copyrighted songs to make sure that people are being taken down. But again, this is very, very easy to bypass. And you can see that federal agents right now, they are basically going after Antifa in a lot of these different locations, like in Chicago and many other areas. Border Hawk put this out and said, federal agents blitz Antifa rioters at ICE Broadway facility using Bearcats, flash grenades, tear gas, pepper balls and spray, paintballs, and other non-lethals. Rioters have been crushed, mobs sent running for the hills. Basically, you're going to see this quite a bit. And what's very interesting, and Andy No pointed this out, if you see people in green hats at far left riots, know that they are not independent legal observers, but are rather members of an Antifa legal group called the National Lawyers Guild. The group helps Antifa and far left terrorists escape prosecution. And you can see that these people, they're very, very easy to spot. So when Trump says organization, it is a well-tuned terrorist organization. They have all these groups on standby and they're ready to go. And you could see that the D's, they've been using Antifa for their political gains. Cynical Publius put this out and said, it's time to consider the possibility that Democrats in Oregon view Antifa violence as a key essential component to the ability to remain in power. Andy No responds and says, it's not a possibility, it's true. Many Oregon Democrats find it useful that Antifa intimidate, beat, and kill their political opponents. Conservative events being shut down with violence benefits Democrat because then Republicans can't engage in the democratic process. Absolutely correct. And when you start to look at it, you could see that Trump is using everything the deep state is doing completely against them. Bad hombre put this out and said, notice how the exact same script keeps repeating. Trump announces federal law enforcement and the National Guard will be sent to protect federal buildings and restore order in the city. Elected Democrats and their propagandists flood social media with a carefully staged photo and videos pretending everything is safe and peaceful. Actual normal residents push back on the lies, plead for help to be sent, and are thankful when it arrives. This happened in Chicago, LA, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and now Portland. Very interesting. Pre-positioning everything? I do believe so. And you can see the D's, they're pushing the same exact propaganda as they pushed back in 2020 with the BLM riots. Ron Wyden put this out and said, Trump is launching an authoritarian takeover of Portland, hoping to provoke conflict in my hometown. I urge the people of Oregon to reject Trump's attempt to incite violence in what we know is a vibrant and peaceful city. I will do everything in my power to protect the people in our state. Stephen Miller responds and says, according to a sitting U.S. senator, if a federal ICE facility and its officers are subjected to unceasing violent Antifa terrorism, the correct response is for the federal government to unconditionally surrender, withdraw, and suspend enforcement, or face even more Antifa violence. Absolutely. But you can see that the Trump administration, they're already setting the stage. They're setting the stage for what is going to happen in the future. And this is the narrative that they're putting out there. Attorney General Pam Bondi put this out and said, I've witnessed the continued onslaught of violence perpetrated against ICE officers across our country. The Department of Justice will not stand idly by in the face of such lawlessness. At my direction, I'm deploying the DOJ agents to ICE facilities and wherever ICE comes under siege to safeguard federal agents, protect federal property, and immediately arrest all individuals engaged in any federal crime. Pursuant to President Trump's recent executive action, I am also instructing the Joint Terrorism Task Force across the country to disrupt and investigate all entities and individuals engaged in acts of domestic terrorism, including the repeated acts of violence and obstruction against federal agents. The Department of Justice will seek the most serious available charges against all participants in these criminal mobs, including conspiracy offenses, assault offenses, civil disorder offenses, and terrorism offenses. While these never-ending attacks are designed to break our will. They'll only strengthen our resolve to complete the work begun. To that end, I have directed the FBI, DEA, ATF, and USMS to accelerate our efforts alongside the Department of Homeland Security to locate, apprehend, detain, prosecute, and remove all illegal aliens present in our country. The rule of law will prevail. Absolutely. And basically, Pam Bondi is letting everyone know that under President Trump's leadership, there is zero tolerance for political violence and domestic terrorism. And she is basically releasing agents to assist. Now, I do believe what's going to happen as time goes on, Antifa, the illegals, the criminals that they have on the streets, those are going to build and build and build. And these agents, it won't be enough. And this is why Trump is going to pre-position the National Guard and the military before he moves towards the Insurrection Act. Now, he's hoping that the National Guard just being at these facilities will deter all of these people, and it will allow the agents from the DOJ and all the other different agencies to arrest these people. But when it completely becomes out of hand, this is when Trump then can say, we're under attack. It's an insurgency, insurrection. And basically, since he designated this group as a terrorist group, anyone that is assisting Antifa, like the illegals, like the criminals, anyone that is funding these people, like the Lawyers National Guild, because they're supporting them, and the money that's coming in from Soros and others, they're also going to be taken down. And think about it. Is this in the Constitution? Absolutely. But Bernie Sanders doesn't think so. And he says, Mr. President, read the Constitution. The function of the U.S. military is to protect us from foreign enemies, not Portland, Oregon. In this country, we have local and state police for law enforcement, not federal troops. Stop deploying the U.S. Army against Americans. Remember, the Constitution says against all enemies, foreign, and here's the key word, and domestic. So Bernie Sanders needs to read the Constitution, and if Trump designated this group as a terrorist organization, this is a domestic enemy. They're attacking the federal government. What doesn't he understand? No, he understands it completely. But again, is anyone buying what he's selling? I do believe he's sending messages out to Antifa saying, move forward, continue. But Lisa May explains everything that Trump has put into place. He signed an executive order designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, signed a national security presidential memorandum countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence, signed a presidential memorandum enforcing the death penalty laws in the District of Columbia to deter and punish the most heinous crimes, directed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists, and also authorizing full force if necessary. When I originally posted all of this, I wondered if there was going to be some big October surprise before the 2024 election, but thank God Trump won. Now with the recent deployment of the National Guard in D.C. and coming soon to other cities, Comey's indictment and more on the horizon, fencing going up in D.C. and Antifa ICE protests ramping up, it sure feels like the stage is being set for a very red October this year. Buckle up, stay vigilant, and pray for our military, law enforcement, and ICE officers in harm's way. Now, the question is it going to be this October, or is this leading up to next October, right before the elections? And think about this. Where is all the funding? Where is it coming from? Well, we know it's from USAID, and we know that Obama, Soros, and many others are involved with this. And remember, when Obama tells you that he's funding certain organizations to stop terrorism, to stop what's going on, like crime and things like that, it's always the opposite. So the Obama Foundation funneled $2 million into the left-wing Tide Center, a clearinghouse for dark money that bankrolls progressive activist groups with untraceable funds. That's very interesting. Where did all this come from? A newly released tax filing. So federal records show the foundation gave $1 million in 2022 and another $1 million in 2023. While the donations were described as support for local organizations that are working to reduce violence in communities, the money instead moved through a network that steers tens of millions into Tide's foundation, a major pass-through funder for left-wing causes. That's interesting. So the Tides Center shifted nearly $20 million to the Tides Foundation, which in turn bankrolled a wide array of progressive activist groups. The Tides Network, marching in lockstep with similarly sized left-wing dark money groups, poured hundreds of millions of dollars from totally untraceable sources into activism meant to sway the outcome of elections. Tide Group sent $132,000 to WESPAC, Westpac, the fiscal sponsor of National Students for Justice in Palestine and the Palestinian Youth Movement. The former organized a day of resistance one day after Hamas' October 7, 2023 terror attack on Israel. Pro-Hamas groups Jewish Voice for Peace and If Not Now, both involved in the occupation of U.S. Capitol building, pulled in a combined $102,000 through Tides linked funding streams in 2022. Tides is also partnering with Trans Justice Funding Project and process donations for Black Lives Matter grassroots. Code Pink received $100,000 from Tides Foundation. In 2023, House probe later concluded that the Chinese Communist Party nonprofit influence machine reportedly now extends to Code Pink. So let's see. Obama is basically sending money to the Tides Foundation to stop violence, which actually promotes violence. See how this works? Very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the Supreme Court right now, and Kyle Cheney put this out, has ruled 6-3 to allow Trump's pocket rescission of $4 billion in foreign aid funding, ruling that it is unlikely that the group suing have standing to pursue the claim and that Trump's foreign policy power outweighs their purported harms. So basically, they're not getting the $4 billion. So basically, what's happening right now is all that foreign aid funding that was going to be laundered back into probably the illegals, the criminals, Antifa, and everything else, that has just been shut down. So every step of the way, what do we see happening? Trump is shutting down their ability to carry out riots at a future date. He's pre-positioning. He removed the intelligence. He put the executive orders in place. He's shutting down the funding, and everything is prepared and ready to go. The National Guard will be brought into every single one of these areas without the Insurrection Act. He already got the ruling from the appeals court. So basically, he's ready to go. And you can see that he's bringing the deep state players down this path because he knows as the indictments continually come out and it all leads up to the deep state players. Remember, right now, these are the low-level people. It's going to go up to the higher-level people. Yes, it's going to be Hillary Clinton, Obama, Soros, and many others. But again, you have to start someplace. And what's very interesting, and Joe Lane put this out, said, did you see this headline? The Justice Department seeks information on Georgia DA who prosecuted Trump. The Department of Justice has issued a subpoena for records related to the travel history of Fannie T. Willis, the Georgia District Attorney who charged President Trump in a sweeping election interference case, according to federal grand jury subpoena reviewed by the New York Times. So why would the DOJ be seeking travel history from Fannie Willis? It's not about vacations with her lover or prosecutor. It's something else. Guess what time frame they are seeking for her travel records. But the current subpoena is seeking details of travel in the fall of 2024, around the time of last year's election. Fannie traveled somewhere important around that time of the election. That's a big clue. Where do you think she went? My guess is that she went somewhere like the Cayman Islands, which is famous for money laundering. It has been a money laundering hub for many decades and offers no taxes, too. Remember, this is more than just retribution. We are at war. That's why I believe her case against Trump was really ended. Last week, the Georgia Supreme Court declined to take up her appeal on the disqualification matter, leaving the case against Mr. Trump and his allies unlikely to proceed anytime soon, if at all. So basically, this is very, very interesting. So where did she go? Did she take money? Is she the main target? I don't believe so. It's probably Soros because Soros basically funded her campaign. So most likely, this is all going to be tracked and led all the way up to George Soros. And remember Letitia James, Alvin Bragg? I do believe these individuals are going to be investigated. And we're going to see that, yes, they were also paid off by Soros. All roads probably, and I think we all know this, lead to Obama, then to Soros. And you can see the deep state players, they are panicking because we have an indictment. And you could see that these individuals, they're saying that this is political prosecution, that how dare you go after someone like Comey, who is an upstanding, law-abiding citizen. You just can't go after your opponents. Well, isn't this what they did to Trump? And now we could see that everything that they have done to Trump and his administration, it's coming back to haunt them. Remember when they went after Trump, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, and a whole slew of people. Now they have nothing to say because remember, nobody's above the law and they already set the precedent. Unbelievable. But you could see Senator Blumenthal, and of course the fake news, all the D's, they're going to defend James Comey because he's part of the criminal syndicate. So Senator Blumenthal, he's defending James Comey after Trump's DOJ indicted Comey. And now he's looking to create legislation to try to stop all of this. And he admitted that the Senate Democrats are drafting legislation to give remedies and rights to political operatives like Comey who face prosecution. That's very, very interesting. Do you really think this is going to work? Absolutely not. This just shows me that they're panicking and they're very worried about what they're seeing. Because again, they're all part of the criminal syndicate. Remember, these installed people, they run interference for the criminal syndicate. Yes, they're getting paid off for the criminal syndicate. They're installed, but they're the ones who run interference. But those days are now ending. Catherine Herridge put this out and said, false statement charge 18 USC 1001 media leaks. Penalties up to 5 years in federal prison. He's also being charged for obstruction. So once again, Comey, he was indicted. I do believe this is just the beginning. And he lied to Congress. Now, Trump also said that Wray lied to Congress. We know that Fauci lied to Congress. This is actually setting the precedent that this will then move forward with every single one of these people. And just on Thursday, we mentioned how Comey's son-in-law was in the DOJ, Troy Edwards, and his son-in-law resigned out of protests. Isn't that interesting? So all of a sudden, he decided to resign. He's saying he's doing it out of protest. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that James Comey, and Eric Doherty put this out, his indictment case is being assigned to a Biden-appointed Judge Michael S. Nachmanoff. So this individual was appointed by Biden, and he sits in the federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. And basically, is he a far left? Is he going to follow the rule of law? Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see how this all plays out. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump with the Patriots, with Comey being the first one where he lied to Congress. I think they're trying to test the waters right now. Let's see which judges are on the up and up. Let's see if they are corrupt. Let's see if they're blackmailed. And let's see how they handle a low-level case like this before we move forward with the other cases. Because when you look at the other judges, they're completely and utterly corrupt. And this would be a very good way, because you have to remember, you think this is the only charge against Comey? No, this is the low-level one. This is a very good way to basically rout out all the other judges who are corrupt and test them along the way. So this is going to be very, very interesting. And we have a lot of deep state DOJ personnel. They're planning to resign over Comey's indictment. So this is going to be very, very interesting moving forward. Hans put this out and said, can you imagine the absolute nightmare Lindsay Halligan was dropped into the last minute? Not just hordes of deep state operatives who were supposed to work for her, but instead leaked nonstop. But James Comey's own son-in-law was literally inside the prosecutor's office, tasked with indicting him. It's almost unbelievable. Some might complain the charges are too weak, but given what she was up against, it's nothing short of a miraculous that she got it done at all. Absolutely unbelievable. And when we look at the U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert, he has a stunning conflict of interest his entire career at the DOJ, but kept it hidden. That's very interesting. Trump fired U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert this past week. Siebert was nominated by the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. He said, this is what Trump says, "Today I withdrew the nomination of Eric Siebert as U.S. Attorney for Eastern District of Virginia when I was informed that he received the unusual strong support of the two absolutely terrible sleazebag Democrat senators from the great state of Virginia. He didn't quit. I fired him. Next time, let him go in as a Democrat, not a Republican. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again." So that is very, very interesting. And you can see that the deep state players, they're still trying to weasel all of these people in there. And Trump now is on top of it, and he's making sure that these people aren't getting put into place. And the other thing that's very interesting is that in Comey's current case, where he's charged with two crimes, he filed with the court a document identifying his attorney as Patrick Fitzgerald. Now, Fitzgerald is an old friend of Comey's. He is also someone Comey leaked documents to. So he leaked classified memos to numerous individuals in various entities. He leaked memos to Andrew McCabe, James Baker, James Rubicki, Daniel Richman, Patrick Fitzgerald, who's his attorney now, David Kelly, and many others. So that is very, very interesting. Now, Praying Medic, he says 5-year delta on a post, and this is from 9/25/2020. There's a link, a Twitter link, to James Comey, and it says, "So is all lies. No treason, no spying on the campaign, no tapping Trump's wires. It was just good people trying to protect America." Down below in the post, it says, "Worth remembering. Think what you know now." He was indicted. Very interesting. Mike Davis says, "This is just your first trial. There'll be more than one, James Comey, and there will be, because this is just the beginning." FBI Director Kash Patel says, "Career FBI agents, intel analysts, and staff led the investigation into Comey and others. They called the balls and strikes and will continue to do so. The widely false accusations attacking this FBI for politicization of law enforcement comes from the same bankrupt media that sold the world on Russiagate, its hypocrisy on steroids. Their baseless objections tell us now, more than ever, that we are precisely over the target and will remain on mission until completion. Thank you to this brave FBI team. Mission first." And remember, there are good people in the FBI and bad people. And I do believe Cash and team, they're working with the good people and routing out the bad people. And what's very interesting is, remember when James Comey found, just on the beach, shells that said, 86 Trump, 8647. Well, Elon Musk responded to that and shows Trump on the beach, and it says, "F around, find out." And Elon says, "Cool shell formation found on beach walk." Yeah, like he just found that. No, he was sending a message because he knew what was coming. Trump, he put this out on Truth that says, "Whether you like corrupt James Comey or not, I can't imagine too many people liking him. He lied. It is not a complex lie. It's a very simple but important one. There's no way he can explain his way out of it. He is a dirty cop and always has been. He was just assigned a crooked Joe Biden appointed judge. So it looks like Trump might know that this Biden judge might be paid off, blackmail, corrupt. And I do believe he's testing the waters." Then he said, "Nevertheless, words are words." And he wasn't hedging or in dispute. He was very positive. There was no doubt in his mind about what he said or meant by saying it. He left himself zero margin of error on a big and important answer to a question. He just got unexpectedly caught. James Dirty Cop Comey was a destroyer of lives. He knew exactly what he was saying, and that it was a very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid. Now, I don't believe James Comey is, the low-level people. I do believe that the other charges are going to show that he was completely and utterly involved in the hoax itself, that he was treasonous to this country. I do believe that Trump is using the lying part to test the waters, to build the narrative, to test the judges. And that is what we're seeing right now. Then Trump says James Comey is a dirty cop, make America great again. Then Trump thanked Kash Patel and said, I'd like to thank Kash Patel and the outstanding members of the FBI for their brilliant work on the recent indictment of the worst FBI director in the history of the country. James Dirty Cop Comey. The level of enthusiasm by the FBI was incredible, but only caused by the fact that they knew Comey for what he is and was, and a total slimeball. Again, thank you to the FBI and specifically those that worked on this case with the U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan and the DOJ. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again, President DJT. And it also shows you that since Comey was the former FBI director, he no longer has power in the FBI. And it shows that Kash is in complete and utter control. Now, John Brennan, he's making the rounds right now, letting everyone know that he looked at his own case and he can't see any wrongdoing whatsoever. And it seems like since I reviewed myself, there's no case whatsoever against him. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. It's like a murderer saying, listen, I looked, I checked the weapon out, I checked the DNA, and you know what? I'm innocent. Let me go. He doesn't make this determination. And I do believe coming up next, it's either going to be Wray or Brennan. Let's see how this all plays out, because Trump has already said that Wray now lied to Congress, and now there is documented proof. So that's very, very easy to see. And that's going to be very, very interesting, which then will be another test of the judges and the system. And it looks like Pam Bondi is saying, yes, the other people, they're in the crosshairs. Clandestine put this out and said, eyes on, Bondi just gave us a hint at who is being investigated. Former heads of intel agencies Brennan, Comey, Clapper, billionaires funding organizations to keep Trump out of office, Soros, everything is on the table. People will be held accountable. Yes, they will. And it's going to be very, very interesting. And we have to look at one of the individuals that have been the architect of a lot of this, which is Lisa Monaco. We mentioned her in the past, but Trump now, he's calling her out and says, corrupt and totally Trump deranged Lisa Monaco, a purported pawn of legal lightweight Andrew Weissman, was a senior national security aide under Barack Hussein Obama and a lawfare and weaponization-obsessed deputy attorney general under crooked Joe Biden and Lisa's puppet boss, Attorney General Merrick Garland, who are all the architects of the worst ever deep state conspiracy against our country. Russia, the January 6th hoax, and the illegal raid on Mar-a-Lago, the Biden auto pen scandal, the Dawkins witch hunt, and more. Monaco has been shockingly hired as the president of global affairs for Microsoft in a very senior role with access to highly sensitive information. Monaco's having the kind of access is unacceptable and cannot be allowed to stand. She is a menace to U.S. national security, especially given the major contracts that Microsoft has with the United States government. Because of Monaco's many wrongful acts, the U.S. government recently stripped her of all her security clearances, took away all her access to national security intelligence, banned her from all federal properties. It is my opinion that Microsoft should immediately terminate the employment of Lisa Monaco. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So it looks like the deep state players try to get around this by having Microsoft hire her for her to gain certain information about what is going on in the United States government, because you have to remember all her security clearances have been stripped away. Remember, they're running blind right now. And I think they tried to pull a fast one, and Trump is calling them out on this. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. And they tried to do this through a private corporation. Very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that in the documents, the declassified documents, in regards to James Comey, there's person 1 and person 3. Now, person 3 is Comey, and it looks like person 1 is Hillary Clinton. So this is going to be very, very interesting. So you could see that all roads are going to be leading to Obama, Hillary Clinton, up to Soros. And I do believe, just like we're seeing, there's a lot more indictments coming down the path. Now, are these indictments going to happen tomorrow? We might, not tomorrow, but soon we might see other ones that have to do with lying to Congress. It might be Wray, it might be Brennan, it might be many others. The treasonous crimes might be a little bit later on because those are more complex. Like Trump said, these are much more black and white, easy to test the waters, test the judges to see how they're going to react to all this and what tactics they're going to use to try to get out to get out of all of this. Or maybe they won't. But this is a good place to start to test them all. And this is going to be very, very interesting. Nick Sorter put this out and said, Dan Bongino just sent a strong message to the deep staters in D.C. If you're a corrupt politician, we will find you. I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. I didn't come here for money. If you want a friend in D.C., get a dog. We're coming for you. So basically, Dan Bongino put everyone on notice. And I thought Dan Bongino was leaving. Isn't the 2 weeks up? That's interesting. He's giving everyone a warning, but he hasn't left. And Trump, reporters were asking him, are there going to be more indictments? And Trump says yes. Clandestine put this out and said, when asked if there will be more indictments, Trump says he believes there'll be others. He says that there were a group of radical left Democrats that weaponized the Justice Department. Trump seems to believe there is much more coming. Comey was just the first domino. Absolutely. And yes, there's going to be a lot more dominoes coming. Now, we could see the deep state players, they're trying to put a lot of pressure on Trump, and they're trying to shut down the government. And we know that Schumer is now blackmailing Trump, saying, I want $1 trillion or else. And we have to remember, the Democrats have always said shutting down the government should never, ever happen. And they always blame the Republicans. Now they're going to own this. And what's very interesting, and Joe Lange once again put this out, said, Trump has perfectly positioned Chuck Schumer and the Democrats to take the full blame for a government shutdown. And he's making sure that the American people know that the Democrats are fighting for two things that the American people are completely against. Already the Democrats are getting wobbly in the knees. Many are panicking over a government shutdown. And Trump has added to the Democrats' panic by promising to fire more government workers while the government is shut down. A perfect opportunity to slash more government bureaucracy. And once again, the deep state players, they don't have any leverage here. They're screwed if they shut it down because Trump is going to fire their people, the swamp. If they keep it open, they don't get what they want. And they don't have funding. And they're screwed. Queen Isabella says, add to that, Schumer must do the shutdown, except this time it's not 2018, pointing to post 584. It says, the entire shutdown exercise was Schumer's attempt to put Trump in his place. He failed spectacularly. Thank you for visiting the White House. Fear. Absolutely. And you could see it's not going to work this time around. And what's very interesting is that Trump, he had the military in the White House, and they're all standing around him. And Ripcord put this out and said, count each person on the left side of Trump, 16. Count each person on the right of Trump, 16. Add Trump Q plus to tip of the spear to each side. What do you get? 17. Kim Auer says, 28 Marines. What must be completed to engage military intelligence over three-letter agencies? During the 50s and 60s, federal troops and federalized National Guard forces, accompanied by military intelligence personnel, were deployed to help. Well done. Picture being painted. So you could see that, yes, in the end, the military is going to be the countermeasure that Trump and the Patriots are going to use. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.